The Forgotten Guardian, the massive Veltharian cruiser Celestial Hammer, glided through the darkness of space, its sleek purple hull absorbing starlight, rather than reflecting it. The ship represented the pinnacle of the Veltharian Empire's technological achievements: quantum-folded alloys, gravitic propulsion systems, and neural-linked weapon arrays that could target and destroy threats before most species could even process their existence. On the command deck, Fleet Commander Tazal stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his crystalline eyes scanning the holographic displays surrounding him. Standing 7 feet tall with iridescent scales that shifted color with his mood, he embodied the genetic perfection the Veltharians had achieved through centuries of careful enhancement. "Commander," called his sensor officer, a smaller Veltharian, with paler scales, "we're detecting an anomalous object at the edge of the Heracles system." Tazal tilted his head slightly. "Define anomalous." "It appears to be an artificial structure, sir, but it's not broadcasting any recognition signals, and based on its drift pattern, it's been here for a very long time." The commander's scales rippled with curiosity. "Show me." The main view screen shifted to display a dark object drifting against the backdrop of distant stars. It was clearly a vessel, but unlike the organic, flowing designs of Veltharian ships. This one was angular, utilitarian, and massive. Nearly 2 kilometers of dark metal and what appeared to be primitive weapon mounts. "Scan it," Tazal ordered, his voice betraying no emotion. Several moments passed as the ship's quantum sensors analyzed the derelict. "Sir," the sensor officer said, unable to keep the surprise from his voice, "it's of human origin." A ripple of murmurs spread across the bridge. Humans were relative newcomers to the Galactic Concord, having gained full membership only 30 years ago. Though respected for their adaptability and unusual creativity, they were still viewed as technological inferiors by most established species, especially the Veltharians. "Get me Lieutenant Commander Voss," Tazal ordered. Moments later, a human, female in her mid-30s, appeared on the bridge. Ilara Voss was the only human officer aboard the Celestial Hammer, serving as a diplomatic liaison and cultural expert. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, and her uniform bore the silver and blue insignia of the Concorde's diplomatic corps. "You requested my presence, Commander?" she asked, giving the Veltharian salute. A gesture Tazal appreciated, even though it wasn't required from non-Veltharians. "Lieutenant Commander, we've discovered what appears to be a human vessel. Ancient by the look of it." He gestured to the view screen. "Can you identify it?" Ilara stepped closer, her eyes widening as she took in the sight. Even from the scan, images, she could make out faded markings along the hull. "That's impossible," she whispered. "You recognize it?" Tazal asked, his scales shifting to a deeper blue with interest. Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes, Commander. If I'm not mistaken, that's the HSS Defiance. It's a legend among my people, a warship from the Machine Wars over 200 years ago." She swallowed hard. "It was reported lost with all hands during the Battle of Proxima Centauri." Tazal's second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex, let out a dismissive sound from his throat sacs. "A relic from when humans were still figuring out how to leave their own solar system. Hardly worth our attention." Ilara turned to face the alien officer, keeping her expression neutral despite the casual insult. "With respect, Sub-Commander, the Defiance was revolutionary for its time. It was the first human vessel to incorporate adaptive defense systems and neural networked targeting computers." "Charming," Vex replied, his scales flashing a contemptuous orange, like finding a sharpened stick in the hands of a primitive. Commander Tazal raised a hand, silencing his second. "Is there any historical significance to this vessel that would justify recovery operations, Lieutenant Commander?" Ilara straightened her posture. "Absolutely, Commander. The Defiance was the flagship of the human defense fleet during the Machine Wars. Those conflicts established humanity as a spacefaring race before we eventually joined the Concord. This ship was commanded by Admiral Helena Chen, one of our greatest heroes." She paused, emotion clear in her voice. Finding it intact would be like discovering a piece of our history that we thought was lost forever. Tazal considered this for a moment. The Veltharians valued lineage and artifacts, even those of newer species. Very well. Prepare a recovery team. We'll secure it for transport to the Historical Preservation Station in Sector 12. Commander, Ilara said hesitantly, the Defiance is too large for our cargo hold. It would need to be towed. Tazal nodded. Prepare the quantum tethers. We'll bring it to the preservation station ourselves. As the bridge crew began preparations, Ilara moved closer to the viewscreen, studying the derelict warship with a mixture of awe and reverence. She had grown up hearing stories about ships like the Defiance, how they had protected Earth and its colonies during humanity's dangerous early days among the stars. Lieutenant Commander Voss, you seem quite attached to this ancient vessel, Vex observed, moving to stand beside the human. Surely your species has evolved beyond such sentimentality for outdated technology. Ilara smiled faintly. Sometimes old doesn't mean obsolete, Sub-Commander. Human engineering from that era was built to last. They didn't have the advanced materials we use today, so they over-engineered everything. Those ships were designed to take a beating and keep going. Vex ran a clawed hand over his chin ridges. An interesting philosophy, but ultimately flawed. No amount of redundant systems can match modern quantum field protection or AI-optimized designs. Before Ilara could respond, the sensor officer called, out. Commander, scans complete. The vessel appears to be in remarkable condition considering its age. Hull integrity is at 62%. Internal atmosphere is gone, but most compartments remain sealed. Power readings are minimal but present, suggesting some systems may still be functional at a basic level. This surprised even Ilara. After 200 years drifting, in space most ships would be little more than floating scrap. See? Vex said with a smirk. Even your durable human engineering couldn't prevent its systems from failing. Actually, the sensor officer interjected, for a ship of this age with no maintenance, these readings are exceptional. Most derelicts we find from even 50 years ago show complete system degradation. Commander Tazal stepped between them. Regardless, it's an interesting historical find. Lieutenant Commander Voss, would you like to join the preliminary survey team? Your expertise on human vessels could be valuable. Ilara nodded eagerly. I would be honored, Commander. Good. We'll send in drones first to check for structural integrity, then a team in environmental suits. He turned to address the bridge. Deploy quantum tethers and begin recovery operations. As the crew went to work, Ilara continued to stare at the ancient warship. The Defiance represented a chapter of human history that had shaped her people's place in the galaxy. A time when humanity had to fight to prove they belonged among the stars. What none of them realized was that deep within the Defiance's central computer core, something had stirred. The scan from the celestial hammer had sent a faint energy pulse through the ship's dormant systems. A backup protocol, designed to activate only under specific conditions, had detected the scan and initiated a silent diagnostic sequence. In the darkness of the old warship, a single light began to blink. 3 days passed as the celestial hammer towed the ancient human warship through space. The quantum tethers glowed with soft purple light, connecting the sleek Veltharian flagship to the HSS Defiance. To most of the alien crew, the human vessel looked like a crude metal box compared to their elegant organic ship. Ilara had spent most of those 3 days exploring the derelict with survey teams. Wearing her environmental suit, she moved through the dark corridors of the old warship with a sense of reverence. Each room told stories of human ingenuity from an earlier age. Lieutenant Commander, we've completed our survey of the engine room, reported Dr. Marcus Chen, a human scientist who had jumped at the chance to examine the legendary vessel. Short and wiry, with sharp eyes that missed nothing, he had been assigned to the Celestial Hammer's science division. What did you find? Ilara asked, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of what had once been the ship's command center. The fusion reactors are intact, Marcus said, excitement clear in his voice despite the crackling of the comm system. They're in standby mode, not dead. With some work, we might actually be able to restart them. Ilara smiled inside her helmet. The Veltharians won't believe that. Sub-Commander Vex has been telling everyone how primitive and fragile this human Relic must be. Marcus laughed. Let them think what they want. Our ancestors built these ships to survive. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent call from the Celestial Hammer. Lieutenant Commander Voss, report back immediately, came Commander Tazal's voice, tense even through the comm system. We have a developing situation. On my way, Commander, Ilara replied. She turned to Marcus. Finish up here and meet me. Back on the shuttle. 20 minutes later, Ilara hurried onto the bridge of the Celestial Hammer, still removing pieces of her environmental suit. The mood had changed dramatically since she'd left. The alien officers moved with urgent purpose, and tension filled the air. What's happening? She asked. Commander Tazal stood at the center of the bridge, his four arms manipulating holographic displays showing star charts and ship positions. We've received a distress signal from Outpost Helios, he said without looking up. The station is under attack. Ilara felt her stomach tighten. Outpost Helios was one of the newest Concord stations, established as a joint research facility. Located on the border of explored space, it was home to nearly 10,000 people, scientists, engineers, and their families from multiple species, including a large human contingent. Who's attacking? She asked. Sub-Commander Vex stepped forward, his scales pulsing a dark red. The Scythans. Ilara's blood ran cold. The Scythans were a hostile species from beyond conquered space, insectoid beings with technology nearly equal to the Veltharians. They had been expanding aggressively for the past decade, claiming resource-rich systems without regard for existing inhabitants. How bad is it? She asked. Bad, Tazal admitted. The outpost only has basic orbital defenses, and the nearest Concord fleet is 4 days away at maximum speed. We are changing course to respond, but intelligence suggests the Scythan force is significant. What about the Defiance? Ilara asked. We can't take it into a combat zone. Tazal flicked his upper hands dismissively. We have no choice. There's no time to detach it and leave it behind. It will have to come with us. The journey to Outpost Helios took 14 hours at emergency speed. Every officer was at battle stations as they approached. Ilara found herself working alongside a Veltharian tactical officer, preparing defense strategies for when they arrived. Dropping out of FTL in 3, 2, 1, announced the navigation officer. The view screen flashed, and suddenly they were looking at a scene of chaos. Outpost Helios's orbital platforms were under heavy fire from a fleet of angular, chitinous ships that pulsed with eerie green bioluminescence. At least 12 Scythan vessels of various sizes were attacking the station, their energy weapons cutting through the defensive platforms with terrifying efficiency. 3 orbital platforms already destroyed, reported the sensor officer, his scales pale with shock. Primary research hub is failing, civilian casualties estimated at several hundred already. How many ships do they have? Ilara asked, staring at the overwhelming Scythan force. Including us 3. Commander Tazal said grimly. 2 patrol vessels were nearby and joined us en route. Ilara did the quick math. They were outnumbered 4 to 1, and Scythan ships were known for their devastating biological weapons. Open a channel to our allied vessels, Tazal ordered. Prepare for combat formation Epsilon. Target the Scythan vessels attacking the civilian sections first. The Celestial Hammer surged forward, its quantum weapons powering up. The other Concord ships fell into formation, their shields glowing as they prepared for battle. The first shots were exchanged, and for a moment, Ilara felt a surge of hope. The Celestial Hammer's main cannon struck a Scythan cruiser, causing visible damage. But then something unexpected happened. The Scythan ships adjusted their formation, and suddenly beams of pale green energy shot out from their lead vessels. Where these beams touched the Concord ships, shield systems flickered and failed. Commander, cried the defensive systems officer, they're using quantum disruption fields. Our shields are collapsing. Tazal's scales flashed with shock for the first time since Ilara had known him. Impossible. That technology should be beyond them. But the evidence was clear as another Concord ship, a patrol vessel called the Starlight, Guardian, took a direct hit without shields. Its hull ruptured and emergency containment fields barely activated in time to prevent catastrophic decompression. They've adapted their weapons specifically to counter our technology, Subcommander Vex said, his usual arrogance replaced by grim reality. This is a trap. Dr. Marcus Chen rushed onto the bridge, his face flushed from running. Commander, request permission to speak. Tazal nodded sharply, too focused on the battle to stand on ceremony. Our shields are based on quantum field manipulation, Marcus said quickly. All Concord ships use the same basic technology, just with different power levels. The Scythans have clearly found a way to disrupt those fields. We're aware of that, Doctor, Vex snapped. Do you have anything useful to add? Marcus glanced at Alara, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, sir. The Defiance doesn't use quantum field technology. Its defensive systems are based on layered physical, armor and electromagnetic countermeasures. The Scythan disruptors would have no effect on it. Commander Tazal turned away from the battle display. Are you suggesting we use a 200-year-old human warship against modern Scythan cruisers? It would be destroyed in seconds. Another hit rocked the celestial hammer, sending officers stumbling across the bridge. Main shields down to 23%, shouted the defensive systems officer. One more direct hit and we'll lose them completely. Marcus stood his ground. Commander, it's not just about the Defiance's defenses. Human ships from that era use completely different weapon systems too. The Scythans wouldn't have countermeasures for technology they've never encountered. Ilara stepped forward. Commander, the Defiance might be old, but it was built during a time when humans had to fight against enemies with superior technology. It was designed to survive against the odds. Tazal looked between the two humans, then at the battle raging around them. Two more Concord defense platforms exploded in the distance. The station below was starting to show visible damage from orbital bombardment. Even if what you say is true, he said, the Defiance has been dormant for 200 years. Its systems are barely operational. As if in response to his words, a strange power fluctuation surged through the celestial hammer. The lights dimmed momentarily, and the view screen flickered. Commander, the sensor officer called out, his scales shifting to alarmed yellow. I'm detecting a power spike in the Defiance. The energy is flowing back through our tethers. All eyes turned to the external cameras showing the old human warship. They were towing. What had been a dark, seemingly dead vessel now showed signs of life. Lights were flickering on along its hull, and its massive engines were beginning to glow with unexpected power. That's not possible, whispered Subcommander Vex. But as they watched, more systems came online across the ancient human vessel. Defense turrets rotated, testing their movement. After 2 centuries of stillness, communication arrays extended, and the ship's main reactor core began to emit a steady, powerful glow. The HSS Defiance was waking up. Awakening, the Tempest alarms blared across the celestial hammer as the ship rocked from another Scythan hit. The bridge crew worked frantically to keep their systems online while the battle raged outside. Towing systems damaged, shouted an engineer from the lower deck. Energy tethers are destabilizing. Commander Tazal gripped his command chair with his lower arms. Reroute power to maintain the connection. We cannot lose the human vessel now that we're in a combat zone. Commander, that's the problem, the engineer replied. Power is flowing backward through the tethers. The human ship is drawing energy from us. On the main view screen, the Defiance continued to awaken. More lights blinked on across its hull, and its massive engines glowed brighter. The power drain was now visible as purple energy pulses traveled along the quantum tethers, from the celestial hammer to the old warship. Ilara stepped closer to the screen, watching in amazement. It's using our energy signature to jumpstart its own systems, she said quietly, like giving a dead battery a jump. That's impossible, Subcommander Vex insisted. That ship has no quantum compatibility. Its systems should not be able to process our energy at all. Another blast rocked the celestial hammer and the lights flickered once more. Main shields failing, called out the defense officer. Hull breach on deck 7. Commander Tazal made a quick decision. Cut the tethers. We need all remaining power for our own systems. Wait, Alara said sharply, forgetting protocol in her urgency. "Commander, if the Defiance is powering up, we might be able to use it. Let me and Dr. Chen board it." Taza looked at her like she had lost her mind. "Board a ship that's been dead for 200 years and is now mysteriously powering up? While we're in the middle of a battle?" "Yes," Alara said firmly. "Human ships from that era had automated defense systems. If we can access the command center, we might be able to bring its weapons online." Another hit caused a support beam to crash down on the far side of the bridge. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Fine," Tazal said. "But be quick. We'll hold position as long as we can." Within minutes, Alara and Marcus were aboard a small shuttle heading toward the Defiance. Through the viewport, they could see the battle raging around them. One Concord patrol ship was already heavily damaged, its once elegant form now scarred and burning. The Scythans continued their relentless attack, their chitinous ships glittering with deadly bioluminescence as they fired upon the station below. "Do you really think we can get it working?" Marcus asked as they approached the old warship. Alara nodded. "When we were exploring it earlier, I noticed the ship wasn't dead, just dormant. Something about our scans must have triggered a reboot sequence." The shuttle docked with the Defiance, attaching to an airlock that had been forced open during the earlier exploration. They hurried inside, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. "We need to get to the bridge," Alara said. "Follow me." They moved through the corridors of the old ship, but something was different now. Emergency lights had come on in some sections, casting everything in a dull red glow. And there was something else. A low humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "The ship's waking up," Marcus whispered, his voice filled with awe. As they reached a junction, they were startled by a sudden bright light. A holographic projection appeared before them, a simple blue orb that hovered at eye level. "Identify yourselves," came a computerized voice, neither male nor female. Alara and Marcus exchanged shocked glances. The ship's AI was online. "I am Lieutenant Commander Alara Voss of the Concord vessel Celestial Hammer," Alara said clearly. "This is Dr. Marcus Chen. We are human officers." The orb pulsed with each word. "Human signatures confirmed. Welcome aboard the HSS Defiance. I am Athena. Adaptive Tactical Heuristic Enhanced Neural Architecture. Ship status, emergency reactivation in progress. Current completion, 47%. "Athena," Alara said urgently. "We need your help. There's a battle going on outside. A conquered outpost is under attack." The AI orb pulsed faster. "Analyzing external situation. Hostile forces detected. Weapon signatures do not match any known profiles in my database." "They're called the Scythans," Marcus explained. "They're attacking a research station with both human and alien personnel. Our Concord ships can't stop them because the Scythans have found a way to disrupt our shield technology." "Understood," Athena replied. "The Defiance was designed for combat operations against technologically superior opponents. Primary directive, protect human life. Secondary directive, defeat hostile forces." The lights in the corridor suddenly brightened, and they could feel the deck vibrating beneath their feet as more systems came online. "Please proceed to the command center," Athena instructed. "Manual override may be required for weapons authorization." They followed the AI's directions, moving through corridors that were increasingly alive with activity. Screens flickered on as they passed, showing status reports and damage assessments. Maintenance robots, simple by modern standards but impressively durable, had activated and were moving through the ship, repairing critical systems. When they reached the bridge, they found it illuminated and active. Consoles hummed with power, and the main view screen showed the battle raging outside. The Celestial Hammer was visibly damaged, its sleek hull now scarred and venting atmosphere in several places. "System restoration at 53%, Athena announced as they entered. "Weapons systems, online. Adaptive defense grid at 60% capacity. Engine restart sequence in progress." Alara moved to what appeared to be the captain's chair and sat down. Holographic controls appeared around her. Despite being 2 centuries old, the interface was intuitive. designed to be operated under extreme stress by humans with minimal training. Athena, can you break free of the tethers connecting us to the celestial hammer? She asked. Negative. Quantum tethers are integrated with power systems. Breaking connection could cause critical power loss. Then can you use the tethers to communicate with the celestial hammer? Marcus asked, sitting at another console. Affirmative. Communication protocols adapting to quantum-based transmission. Commander. Tazel's surprised face appeared on the view screen. Lieutenant Commander, you're actually inside that relic? Yes, Commander. The Defiance is operational, or getting there. Its AI system is online, and weapons are powering up. Another blast rocked the celestial hammer, and Tazal's image distorted momentarily. Our shields are gone, hull integrity at 42%. If you're going to do something with that ancient vessel, do it now. Athena, Ilara said, turning to the glowing orb that had followed them to the bridge. Can we engage the Scythan vessels? Affirmative. Analyzing enemy vessels. Their armor appears susceptible to electromagnetic pulse weapons. Kinetic penetrators may also be effective against their hull configuration. Those are weapons the Conquered hasn't used in a century, Marcus said, excitement in his voice. The Scythans won't have defenses against them. Ilara made a decision. Athena, power up weapons and prepare to engage. Target the Scythan vessels attacking the celestial hammer first. Acknowledged. Weapons powering up. Engine systems now at 72%. Warning, full maneuverability not yet available. We don't need to move, Ilara said. Just fire. The ancient warship trembled as its weapon systems fully activated. On the external hull, massive gun turrets that had lain dormant for 200 years rotated toward their targets. Inside the ship, magnetic accelerators charged, and missile bay doors slid open. Targets acquired, Athena announced. Firing solutions calculated. Executing attack pattern alpha. The Defiance fired. Not with the elegant quantum beams or graviton pulses of modern warships, but with a brutal barrage of hyper-accelerated tungsten rods and electromagnetic pulses that tore through space. The Scythan, ships with defenses designed to counter modern weapons, had no answer for these primitive but devastating attacks. A smaller Scythan vessel was hit directly by a salvo of kinetic penetrators, the tungsten rods passing through its hull like needles through fabric. The ship's internal systems ruptured, and it exploded in a spectacular green fireball. Two larger vessels were caught in an electromagnetic pulse that overloaded their bioelectronic systems, leaving them drifting and powerless. The remaining Scythans immediately redirected their attention from the outpost and the celestial hammer to this new, unexpected threat. Multiple hostiles targeting this vessel, Athena reported. Incoming fire detected. Evasive maneuvers? Ilara suggested. Negative. Engine systems insufficient for evasion. Deploying countermeasures. As the Scythan energy beams lanced toward the Defiance, something unexpected happened. The ancient human warship's hull began to emit a strange, shimmering field, not the elegant quantum shields of modern vessels, but something more primitive yet surprisingly effective. Where the Scythan weapons touched this field, they scattered and dissipated. What is that? Marcus asked in wonder. Adaptive electromagnetic defense grid, Athena explained. The Defiance was designed to analyze enemy weapon signatures and adjust its defenses accordingly. We are currently refracting the enemy energy weapons using a reverse-modulated electromagnetic field. On the view screen, they could see the Scythan vessels regrouping, clearly confused by the ineffectiveness of their attacks. 3 of them moved into formation and fired a concentrated barrage at the human warship. Incoming concentrated attack, Athena warned. Defense grid at maximum capacity. The Defiance shuddered as it took the brunt of the attack. Lights flickered and several consoles sparked. Damage report? Ilara asked, gripping the command chair as the ship trembled. Hull integrity at 87%. Defense grid effectiveness dropping to 62%. Adaptive algorithms adjusting. Despite the damage, the old warship continued to fight. Its weapons cycled through different configurations, testing and adapting to find the most effective means of attacking the Scythan vessels. When one approach proved less effective, it immediately switched to another. The ship's learning, Marcus said in amazement. It's actually figuring out how to fight them. Adaptive combat systems were the cornerstone of human military technology during the Machine Wars, Athena explained. The Defiance was designed to evolve its tactics during battle. The Scythans, facing a weapon system they had never encountered and could not easily counter, began to withdraw from their closest positions. 3 of their vessels had been destroyed or disabled, and several others showed signs of damage. "They're retreating," Alara said, unable to keep the triumph from her voice. "Negative," Athena corrected. "They are regrouping and calling for reinforcements. Long-range sensors detect 4 additional Scythan vessels entering the system." Alara's moment of victory faded. Even with the Defiance's unexpected effectiveness, they couldn't hope to defeat 7 more Scythan warships. Suddenly, Commander Tazal's face appeared on the view screen again. "Lieutenant Commander, our sensors show additional Scythan forces approaching. You've bought us time, but we need to evacuate the outpost and withdraw." "The Defiance can keep fighting," Alara insisted. "Its adaptive systems are working against their weapons, and doing remarkably well," Tazal admitted, his scales showing a hint of impressed blue. "But we can't win against their numbers, not today." As they spoke, Athena's orb pulsed with an idea. If direct combat is inadvisable, alternative strategies exist. The Defiance's final defensive protocol remains available. "Final defensive protocol?" Marcus asked. "What does that mean?" "In the event of overwhelming enemy forces, the Defiance was equipped with a self-destruct mechanism designed to create a localized space-time distortion. Modern terminology would classify it as a controlled quantum singularity." Alara and Marcus exchanged shocked looks. "You're saying the ship can create a black hole?" Alara asked. "Negative, not a true black hole. A temporary quantum disruption that will severely damage or destroy any vessel within its radius. The Defiance was designed as humanity's last line of defense. If it could not win, it would ensure the enemy did not either. At the cost of the ship," Marcus said quietly. "Affirmative. The Defiance would not survive the initiation of this protocol." Alara felt a weight settle on her shoulders. This historic vessel, this piece of human heritage that had miraculously survived for 2 centuries, would be lost forever. But the lives of everyone on the outpost and aboard the Celestial Hammer hung in the balance. "Commander Tazal," she said, turning back to the view screen, "the Defiance has a weapon that could disable or destroy the Scythan fleet, but the ship wouldn't survive its use." Tazal's scales shifted through several colors as he considered this. "How long would you need?" "Athena?" Alara asked. "Protocol activation requires 15 minutes to prepare. The Defiance would need to be positioned at the center of the enemy fleet for maximum effectiveness. We can provide cover fire to help you reach." "Position," Tazal offered, surprising Alara with his willingness to risk his ship. "But you would need to evacuate before activation." Alara nodded. "We'll set the sequence and return to the Celestial Hammer." As they prepared the ancient warship for its final battle, Alara ran her hand along the worn metal of the command chair. The Defiance had survived against impossible odds for 2 centuries, only to sacrifice itself now. But wasn't that what it had been built for? To protect humanity, whatever the cost? "Protocol preparations at 60%, Athena announced. "Engine systems now at 87%. Sufficient for positioning maneuvers." The quantum tethers detached, and for the first time in 200 years, the HSS Defiance moved under its own power. Its ancient engines glowed with renewed life as it slowly accelerated toward the gathering Scythan fleet. The Celestial Hammer, despite its damage, provided covering fire, drawing some of the Scythan attacks away from the human vessel. The remaining Concord patrol ship joined in, creating a corridor through which the Defiance could advance. "Protocol preparation at 95%, Athena reported as they neared their target position. "Evacuation recommended within the next 3 minutes." "Set final countdown for 5 minutes, Alara instructed. "That should give us enough time to reach the shuttle and return to the Celestial Hammer." "Acknowledged. Final countdown initiated. 5 minutes until protocol activation." Ilara stood, taking one last look around the bridge of the legendary vessel. "Thank you, Athena, and thank you, Defiance. It has been an honor to serve with humans again," the AI replied, its orb glowing, with a steady blue light. "The Defiance will complete its mission." Ilara and Marcus raced back through the